break it in with.
Do you need a cord?
No. I'll just take John's.
Let's see what I'm gonna have, if I can afford it.
No, I kept rolling over until I was like.
3%, so.
No, I find. I got prepared.
I came prepared, I brought an outline.
Sorry about it. Actually, I have it find on my desk. Yeah, I mean, just plug it in, leave it, and then. I real notes in my book.
Well, you know that in standby mode, it uses 97% from board meeting to board meeting.
Yeah.
And Gail showed them here. So that we can share with both of us.
You guys can come in and sit down, it's fine, Josh is really
We're
nice,
harmless.
it's okay.
So, Mr. President, we're ready to go whenever you are.
All right. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Have roll call again
Josh,
here.
Nathan,
Here.
Melissa, here, Mindy, here, Andrew,
Here.
and Abigail, here, joining us tonight.
All right.
All present.
Approval of the agenda. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second, sir.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. Public forum. Do we have anybody for public forum or anybody? No. All right. Oral reports, announcements, celebrations. Like we have some people here.
We do. We have so many celebrations going on throughout the district. It's just good things happening all the way around. Our middle school had mathletes, a competition that did really well. And of course, we know our basketball team, our girls played at state last week, and that went really well. So we were excited to celebrate them. And in the middle of all of that, we had our wonderful students from DECA who also were at a competition, and their teacher and extraordinaire, Vicki Hales, is here. So I want to thank the students for coming today, and I'm going to let Mrs. Hales talk to us a little bit about DECA and let the kids share their good news with us.
I'm gonna turn it over to them to start.
All right, so we're going to talk about Gilbert DECA and how well we did in this year's chapter and just our accomplishments. So this year we had a really big group, and every year our group keeps getting bigger. We had 65 members this year. 30 competed at districts, 29 competed at state, and 21 are attending ICBC. The biggest lesson I've learned from DECA this year is just how to be confident in myself and how to just speak up in a group and just be confident in my decision making.
At districts, we, me and other freshmen or people doing it for their first time kind of learned what it is like to simulate the competition just like at state. It was really like a practice event where you could do role plays and other events. I myself participated in a role play, and through districts and state, I learned that hard work really does pay off whether you do put in effort or you don't, because although it might seem like intense that you go against seniors or other people, really the only competition for people stopping you from winning is yourself.
So what we did at districts and everything kind of led up to our state competition, which happened here in February. And we had 29 total competitors from Gilbert, and there's kind of the breakdown of the numbers of people that competed in various events up on the screen. But we all prepared for about 2 to 4 months doing various different events, so we would do well at state. And one of the biggest things that DECA has helped me learn is just, principles of business that are going to be beneficial for any career in the future, and just how to be professional in the world of adulthood. Here's some of our events, the categories we do. We have role play events, which are more like conversational. You're given a scenario and you have to respond to it on the spot. We also have written events, which students can prepare a 10 to 20 page paper about a certain topic, and they have to, really develop a really good understanding of their idea and their concepts. And then we also have professional selling, which is kind of a combination of the two, where you get to do a little bit of preparation, but it's not as intense as a written event.
So out of the 29 people who competed at state, we have 21 who are moving on to ICDC. And to get to ICDC, you had to place in the top 3 of your role play or top 2 in your written event. And the biggest lesson that I've learned is how to communicate with others and how to like grow as a leader.
So they're all talking about ICDC, and none of them have been to ICDC yet. This is their first year. So ICDC is the culminating event for DECA. We do the districts, like they said, do state, and then those who qualify can go compete at ICDC. And this is where they have over 20,000 students from all 10 states, all 100, good grief, 50 states and 10 additional countries. So it really is an international competition. They'll be up against, there's almost 500 students in every single event. They'll be put in flights, so the top 2 in each flight move on to the finals. The overall goal is DECA glass, this big glass trophy, and then scholarships that come with it. But it's a great place for them to practice their professionalism. They learn how to talk to different people. They don't know anybody out there. They're with their parents. They have to be super independent. But it's all about that, the creativity, the collaboration, communication, all those skills that you want your students to learn for the next step. So you want to go to the next one. When they're out here, we have 12 of our members are competing in one of the role play events, as Delaney was talking about. 6 of them are doing written events that they've already prepared the papers. Now just fine tuning them, getting ready to present them. We have 1 member doing the professional selling event, and we have 2 that are going into the Ignite Professional Series, which is a leadership conference. So while we're out here, just a brief little timeline. It's 5 days, but we are doing something for DECA every day except the last day is traveling home. So it's a great, they'll have a college career fair they can go to if they choose. There's all sorts of, they have a pin trading event, which is the biggest like networking social event of the whole week. Just a chance to get to know people from other states, other countries, learn how to talk to people on the fly, introduce yourself, all those things. So, and we, of course, going to spend 1 night at Universal. They closed down the whole park, except for if you're in DECA. So it's a fun little time to celebrate. So I guess at this point, I'm going to open it up for questions.
One of the events that was up there was like a sales activity or a business activity. Can you give an example of something that you might be doing?
Well, none of us really compete in professional selling
Up here.
so
Yeah.
Okay.
So in that one, they would have, there's 3 different, there's a financial consultant, professional selling, marketing, and then a hospitality one. So like the hospitality one, they had, you're the manager of a glamping resort, and you have a client that wants to bring their company and all of their families to this resort for a weekend getaway, plus a working retreat. So you have to sell your campground to them and all the services you can offer, going through the whole sales technique. So they, you know, the whole like professional selling stages.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's like with another person in the room
Correct. Yes.
working on that, okay.
Yep.
I had the opportunity to be a judge at one of the events, and one that I had is the kids had to, they were presenting their plan to try to get people to switch over from a cable system to a different system, and they had, I think, like 30 or 40 minutes to figure that out and then present that to us, and then we scored them based on all the information that they shared. And it was really fun to see what creative ideas that they had, and what, just how quickly they came up with their ideas, how well it was planned out. And so they're very impressive. So I'm not surprised that we have 21 going to national.
Is DECA a class or a club?
It's a club.
It's a club.
Yep.
So you guys meet like outside of school to work on your
It's an intercurricular club, so it's all integrated into my classes as well.
Okay, cool.
You said that it had grown a lot this year. Can you tell us a little bit about the growth for the last few years?
At least personally for me, I was a member of DECA last year. I didn't compete though, and I think our chapter has nearly doubled in size. And that's just the people that don't compete. I think we have about 60 members now, which is a really big portion of our school. And then we had 29 people compete. We had 29 people compete, which was nearly half of our chapter. So it's great to see DECA growing this year.
To put it to numbers, last year, the first year, we had one person attend ICDC. Last year, we had 3, and now 21.
Wow.
So that was
Wow.
growth numbers. in
Yeah.
Practice, yeah.
So next year, you're gonna have 100.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was a funny tale that as Mrs. Hales is trying to book the plane tickets for people to go and things like that, they couldn't get the district credit card to work because it's never gone that high. So we had to do a little finance there to get that all worked out. So it's a good problem to have, so. And I can't thank Mrs. Hales enough for all the work that she does with our students and with our club. And she's too humble to say part of the growth was because of the leadership and what she's brought to the table. She also was our, is it Dan Wooden? Is it, teacher?
Dan
Wooden teacher of the year. Yeah, last year, excellent. So she's award winner for that too. So it's good.
Good work. Yeah. Congratulations. Good job to everyone that's not here as well.
Yeah, tell us your name and what, class you're in.
Okay, Ms. Hales or,
Great.
Well, great.
my name's Ellie Moment and I'm a freshman.
My name is Delaney Anderson and I'm a junior.
I'm Bea Dantis and I'm a sophomore.
My name is Noreen and I'm a freshman.
No boys, they'd show up, huh?
And some volunteers. and-
Yeah.
Way to go.
Good job.
Very well done.
Very good job.
Well, we just have a little, normally Josh, our president would give you these, but you know, since I'm over here, and you might have to wait a little. These are keychains, just a little Gilbert keychain to say thank you for, all that you're doing. So there's, choose one, and if you don't have keys yet, maybe you will, right? So just-
They're gonna turn on someone for a problem.
Yeah, right.
Best of luck. to you.
It's a little token to say thank you for all your hard work. So would you like one?
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good job, girl.
Great job.
Wait to hear your back after you got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Administrator reports. Department updates.
Yes, you have in front of you the department updates. There's a lot happening there. Just a couple of things I'd like to highlight. One is I wanted to just mention our food services. As you know, we keep getting compliments about what's happening, and we're excited about that. She actually sent another email with some stats to it that I wanted to mention that's not on here, which is we've had increase in 1 month. She's had increase in adult meals at the intermediate and at the element, at all 4 buildings, but the highest was 400 and 500% increase of adult meals. So teachers went from maybe not having lunch at school to now they're all eating lunch at school. So she's serving salads and different things on Wednesdays. And then also participation of our own students, it's going up between, I think it was 10 to 15% increase in the breakfast and lunch program, and I'm sure we'll continue to see that climb. So some nice stats that came out there that I just wanted to mention. So she's continuing to work with our kids and our families on what they need. So there's lots of good things happening. Please be sure to take a minute if you didn't before the meeting to see all the projects that are going on, but that's just a brief overview for you.
Just wanted to point out too, you mentioned, well, we had a lot of things going on, but the coolest thing, one of the coolest things I thought was the bowling team getting second in state, because I think it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we had a group of students come to the board and roll out, they wanted to come out with a bowling program. Why? And they had the plans, they had the shirts, they had the coach, it was kind of student driven. And then to look 3 years later that they got second state, I thought was really, really cool. So, I mean, it was a real, were you here when they rolled that? I think you were
Yes,
here.
it was
Yeah.
my first year.
First year, yeah, so it wasn't that long ago, and again, they came and they presented, the shirts we thought were unbelievable. And it's just neat to see how much that's grown, both boys and girls had a great year, and the number of kids that are out bowling, I think is just awesome, so.
The bowling, I mean, I think it's so, there's so many successes. I'm so proud of our bowlers, both the girls and the boys, you know, if you remember when we had, I don't even remember at this point who we were playing, but the girls were playing basketball here in Gilbert, the same time our kids were down at state at bowling, and it was almost happening at the same time, and we were watching, okay, how are the bowlers doing? Okay, they got into the finals, and how did it go? And they ended up getting second, but it was all happening at the same time. So it was really exciting, and so same thing with our, you know, we had one student go to state wrestling, and, you know, that was a big honor to have a wrestler down there at the state wrestling. And so just so many things happening, and that was kind of all at that same time. And we have, like I said, we had middle schoolers at the math counts or mathletes, and then we have, you know, DECA going on. And it's just, you know, in addition to all the wonderful things that are happening in the classroom, and of course we have conferences this week, and so we have lots of families coming in and having time with their child's teacher, and so lots of good things.
I heard that Thursday's chicken sandwiches were the bomb.
Oh, see,
For school lunch,
you.
so I'm
It
hearing
is.
great things about that.
Yeah.
So,
It is very exciting to see where it's headed to, so.
Awesome. Mental wellness report?
Yes, just so you're aware, we were to start our community forum with Jennifer Yulee about a week and a half ago, and it was the same night as our basketball game that came. So we put that on pause. So that same date will be coming up again with that same group. We just pushed it back by a month so that we'll probably have an extra meeting on the far end. But we just felt it was important. We didn't want our community to be conflicted about should we go support our girls in the basketball game up at the high school gym, or should we go to this meeting about community wellness? And so Jennifer Yulee, our facilitator, was able to do that for us, and that allowed us to kind of have both. And it was great because she said, boy, that sounds like mental stress to ask people to choose between one or the other. Let's not do that. So I'm excited about that. Also, in addition to that, I had a meeting with a company that we are looking at, and to me, I think this will come through the facilitation of this committee, but some resources for parents that could involve parent classes within your own home. And you could log in, and if you have a child that's maybe suffering from maybe some depression or anxiety, and as a parent, you just don't know what to do about that, there might be some options there. So we'll be looking, and I'll be bringing more information to you about that, but it was exciting, I thought, to have that information. And I brought that back actually for my trip to San Diego, and then met with that person this last week. And so I'm digging into it a little bit more. So that's the update for that.
Good, like more parental resources.
Yeah, and I thought it would be nice to be able to do that, like lots of things, kind of on your couch, and after everybody's gone to bed, if you want to be able to have some resources for parents, that would be kind of neat. That's what intrigued me about it, so.
Good. All right, board reports, policy committee update.
Nathan and I are policy committee.
Yep.
And we met with Dr. T and Gail 2 weeks ago. Basically just to kind of understand the process for reviewing policies. I would do review them once every 5 years. Our understanding is last year the board got up to date on all of that. Everything's been reviewed. And so and all of our policies are now in Assembly. So we will be working with Gail to get a list of all the policies and the date they were last reviewed. And then Nathan and I will work on our process for going forward, what our schedule is going to be for reviewing those. In addition, we just got one of the quarterly updates from IASB with some new policies or some changes to make in current policies. So Nathan and I will be reviewing those and hope to bring those forward at our next meeting.
Yeah, well said. So we're trying to true up the policy, procedure, and get on a regular cadence so that we can be well ahead of everything going forward.
All right. Facilities reports. Intermediate school radon testing report.
Woohoo!
Yay, that, I will turn it over to Mr.
Radon.
Vanderpool to share with us about our most recent radon testing report.
Very exciting report. The state of Iowa is required to have all schools tested, and you have a time period to get that completed in. So they give you like till 2026 to have all of your buildings tested for radon. You have to kind of have a schedule of doing it because it's rather expensive, so you do it over, about a building a year for 4 years to have that done, of course, 5 years. We started with our intermediate building. You are required to use a radon testing company that the state has approved. They come in, they place radon testing kits in every educational space where students might be. And it ended up 45 locations inside of this building. What was found out is, and I'm learning new things every day about radon testing, so they're measuring for picocurie liters per million. The range is between 2 and 4. Anything above 4, you have to mitigate. Okay, anything that falls in between 2 and 4, you would consider mitigating depending on where it slides on the scale. If it's toward the bottom of that 2, you don't really need to do anything. If it's closer to that 4, you probably need to do something. If you are required to do mitigation, you must use a certified company that comes in, and then you have to pay for the mitigation for the radon. So out of 45 locations, there were 4 locations that fell within that 2 to 4 range. One classroom was 2.3, 2.3, 2.0, 2.0. The other 41 classrooms were considerably below or in that acceptable range below 2. And so after doing all of that and looking at all of that, the recommendation was you can consider fixing that, but since it's the lower end of the range, you're not required to do anything. If it's closer to the top of the range, then you would need to mitigate any of those areas that are concerned. So we felt that was a very good report to come back, considering they had, tested 45 locations in a massive building, which was one of our oldest buildings also. So we're very optimistic that with the newer buildings, they're built differently than some of these older buildings. So we felt very good about it. So that was the update.
In residential stuff, they recommend if it's 4.1 or higher.
Yes.
Why would it be lower?
I don't know. I'm just reading from what the report says it's 4.0. I just looked up the US Gov one and it said 2.0 to 4.1 range. Maybe there's a different, I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah. Interesting.
I just says right here up to 4.0 picocuries per liter. So I think we're in a really good spot. Next year, we will have our next building tested, which is our middle school, and we will test our high school and our elementary will be our last school. So, like I said, the reason we do that is because it's about anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per building just for the testing. So it depends on the size of the building and how much time we put into it. Our high school is obviously one of our biggest buildings. We'll have the most radon tests in it. So I felt really good about that, and we're just on the schedule for next year to do our next building, and we'll just keep that cycle up until we finish that 5-year cycle. So, and I'm sure we'll have to probably start it again at some point.
So when we do the elementary, will it be the new building then?
Well, I don't know. It kind of depends on how timing. Depends on the timing on the building. So,
That's sort of why we were putting the elementary on the far end of this process.
Yeah,
So that
Is there a legal requirement to get that done in a certain amount of time?
you had to have all 4 of your buildings done within the 5-year period that they designate. So we're just at the start of that process,
Right. It just seems like if you have to spend $10,000 on a building that we're gonna be vacating.
And then they probably give you some time to take action on that.
Right.
I would imagine.
So we're
Yeah.
we're trying to
Drag out that element.
Yeah.
I spend that money, we have other places.
it might all work itself out, and then it would be our new building that we would get to test.
It all depends on, how quickly we roll through that cycle of construction.
Okay.
So far, so good. I mean, I thought we were good with the number of tests we had and how. The nice part is if you look at the report with everything covering right at around 2 or considerably lower, that's really pretty good for a little building.
Yeah. So I guess the thought process that we won't mitigate this building because we're on the lower end.
That is what the recommendation from the experts is.
Okay.
It's not needed due to it falls within the acceptable range.
Okay.
So. Any other questions? Everybody get those right now? All right. Yeah, if people carry on your bingo card, you can check it off.
Got it.
Right.
Facilities update. Joe, what do you got for us?
Got updates on all the facilities, starting with the middle school addition. Steve will talk about that. Go to the next slide, Jason.
Well, I assume we'll give you the overview here of the middle school up to bid, and then obviously we've got some action on here today. The middle school design was completed, month and a half ago, give or take. We put that out to bid. We were expecting a pretty good bidder pool initially. Once we got to the day of, it was made apparent that we were gonna have two bidders. We did get two bidders, who submitted. It was Shakar Engineering and Keystone Construction. I don't know if you all have a bid tab in front of you, but Keystone was low. There was a 20% spread between the two bidders, which is higher than what we normally like to see. You'll note that Keystone Construction was a solid $130,000 lower than Shakar. We can't really speak to why Shakar was higher, as we don't have any of the backup documentation that is required from the low bidder to submit when they are the apparent low bidder after the bid opening. But we did receive that from Keystone. We validate through what's called their schedule of values, which is something that will be included in every pay request that Gilbert receives before a check will be cut for any work. So it breaks down by line item every scope of work in the project. So we're able to visually see you've got each division, what we call a construction division, covered. Beyond that, we basically just ask them, are you comfortable? You won the bid. You feel like you got the coverage from all your subs. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They are a low bid on a single prime package, which means the entire construction document set is their responsibility to complete based on their low bid. If they weren't comfortable with that number, they could pull out, but that's why we have a bid security. So we would keep 5% of that amount, hand it over to district, and you could use that as you see fit, ideally to find another bidder. They will be moving forward with contracting, assuming that gets approved. They are comfortable, ready to go, and we would recommend moving forward with that low bidder. And we would recommend rejecting taking the alternate of the $8,200 credit based on its value compared to the scope you're receiving, which is additional glazing that we felt was ideal for the reception space in particular. Assuming that does get approved, we would go straight into a notice to proceed with Keystone. That's us sending them a document, basically telling them, following the board meeting and the district board's approval, you are released to start procurement, submitting documents back to us that we need to check off with the design team to say these materials are correct. They get the ball rolling essentially because contracting is going to take a couple of weeks. But we jump right into that as well. We'll send them a contract draft, which is included in the spec. So every team that bids on this already has the contract we're going to be submitting. They can make 0 changes, 0 red lines. It doesn't matter what their legal department says, the contract stays. So there's no back and forth to happen with the contract. They'll sign it. We'll bring it to Josh for signature, and then we're off and running.
What were your takeaways from this bid? I mean, you said you were hoping to have more. We had 2, which is,
Yeah.
What other takeaways do you have in regards to this bid process going forward?
So when we were initially planning, a lot of these projects, and this one in particular, we talked about the bid window. The bid window, ideally every year, your bid window is getting your documents done by the fall, submitting them for bid to all the contractors in September, October to start the following May. That's ideal. It rarely happens. It wasn't gonna happen with this project either, based on when we wanted to start construction, you get your bond. Now the referendum's coming to go through in November, it makes things a little more challenging. But the bid window played a little bit into that. Contracts get their backlog filled up, even though they'll tell you a month beforehand, hey, yeah, we'd like to take a look at this, we're interested. By the time the bid's coming up, they may have won another project. So their labor is secured already for the start of that summer. That played into it. This project is considerably small when it comes to a lot of these capital school projects, especially additions. So a lot of these teams that are going to be hunting something yet for the summer would be looking for a bigger project. So we started with 5 ideal, but up to 7 on our bidders list. So we get to see who downloads all these documents on the online plan room. We had a number of them that said they were interested, a month and a half ago. And then, 1 or 2 will peel off in the next 2 weeks. And then really they start looking at these documents about 2 weeks before the bid, not when we actually submit them. Once they dug in, a few others told us they weren't interested any longer. So in our minds, without hearing it directly, it probably had to do with schedule and backlog would be the main kicker for not receiving 3 to 5 bids. I will say, really the 2 options are to approve or reject. On the rejection side, there is one option. That option would be to rebid this. To rebid a project, if you do get bids for it, you have to change something with the project. You can't just put it back out because you didn't like the number you got. If we put it back out, we would change the schedule. That's one piece you can change. We would bid this in the fall to start next year. We are 5% over our budget, give or take, on a fairly small project, a total project budget. That's fairly insignificant. And by the time work were to start next May, inflation will probably catch up with that 5% anyway. We do feel like this is the best number you're gonna get for this project, especially with the state required changes that we had to make a week and a half before we put the bid docs out.
And your company has experience with the low bidder. Could you tell us about that?
We do. So on a lot of projects, give or take $1 million or under, we have Keystone bid on. We actively send these documents out to a lot of the bidders we think are right for a project. Anybody can bid on it. Keystone's one of the ones we would send any project under $1 million easily, higher than that as well. But this is an ideal project for their team. We have them contracted to do work within our office as well right now. So apart from bidding on a number of district projects we've had in the past 3 months, they're also doing work for us.
Questions?
Let's move on to the PK2 then. I apologize, we're gonna stick with the middle school for a second here. These are phase 2 items. I just want to get this back in front of everybody. Next slide, please, Jason. This is what we're looking at for phase 2 on the building. So the highlighted areas in red, we've shared with this group before. We have approximate areas. We're working with Steven and Patrick and his team to identify anticipated costs for this as we look at the overall budget, which we're going to be reviewing probably the next week or 2 with the group. And what's an update on this, if you go to the next slide, Jason, is we got our survey information back, and the information we have looks good. There's no major utilities on either addition, so you can see how it sits with property lines, and we're starting to look at setbacks and more, making sure that this is all feasible, going from conceptual to schematic. So that's something we're kind of working on behind the scenes to get numbers to, and then obviously it's a phase 2 project, so we'll get back in front of Mike and his staff at some point and run that through that. The PK2, we have some updated imagery, and a lot of this is, you'll see on poster boards that I think are going to be delivered in the next week or so.
They're hanging out right now.
Yep, they are.
Oh, wow.
Sitting in the library.
So this is the fun part of creating the fun visuals that the community gets to see and keep the excitement going for the project. Behind the scenes, we've been working a lot as a facilities committee and with de novo with the city ahead of P&Z submittal. It's been a pretty involved process, and we've had a lot of meetings. We have people in this room, and we're targeting a submission of Thursday of this week of those documents to Sonia at the city. And that'll be 2 weeks ahead of their regularly scheduled P&Z meeting on the 21st. So we'll go and talk to Doug and that group about the project and answer any questions they have. Ultimately, coming out of that meeting, we hope to follow up with any information they might request, or if they're ready to recommend approval, we'll have the regular April 1st city meetings go and make that recommendation and keep this moving. So that's the critical path for us right now. Internally, we're in the construction documents. It's probably less meetings than what we've had over the last 3 months, but there'll still be a few meetings. I know we've got one on the 18th with Stacy and Vic and Dr. T to go through things and make sure that we're capturing everything in the design that we've talked about. And then the 20th and the 27th, those will be our follow-up teacher meetings with all of Stacy's staff to go through it. We go through with each group. So fun days of lots of meetings and make sure we get all the last minute information plugged into the drawings. So that's what we'll be working on. And that's still shooting for that May 1st delivery date to de novo to get on the streets today. So everything is tracking there. Next slide, Jason. And these are just some of the updated visuals. We've done a lot of back and forth with Stacy and Dr. T on what this is going to look like. And so not hugely different than the last time you've seen, but maybe more scale, more developed than what the building is. We're liking the way it's coming along. This is the neighborhood spaces. There'll be one for kindergarten, first grade, second grade. And then you can see each of these little nooks. Those are the classrooms off this space. So this is the shared area. The teachers are pretty excited about it. So it's been fun to design. And then this is more of the south and east side of the building. Those are the red exposed neighborhoods. So you can see on the outside of the building how it tracks into the side of the building, lots of natural light. Just a fun aspect of the building.
So at the end of each of those, just so, can we go back one slide? If you look all the way towards where the windows at the end of that, if you were to go out those double doors, now you can go to the next slide. That's that outdoor area.
Where are the lockers?
So there's locker bays at the entrance to every neighborhood.
Okay.
If you go back a couple slides, Jason, one more.
It's Gail.
It's a jail down. Such a shout. So as you walk into each space, Melissa, there's private, but restrooms dedicated to each age group, and then across the way, there's lockers. It's kind of like your drop off area buffer.
It is, yeah.
And then outside in the outdoor spaces, Dr. T was talking about, that's where we're talking about using Gene Upstill's chalkboards.
Oh, good. We had decided where that was going.
That's what we're gonna propose to you.
Good, I like it. I like a sneak peek. That's good.
Any questions on that?
Did I share that here about, so Gene Upstill has donated some original chalkboards that came out of the old school a long time ago that he said we could have, and I challenged our team here to figure out a cool way to incorporate them into this building, so.
Like cost savings. This is the high school. So since the last time we presented this to the group, we made a few modifications. One of the things that they really want to add to the space, they being Cindy and the teachers, is there's not a whole lot of restrooms down at this end of the hall. And it's not something that we necessarily had with master planning, but we're trying to find a way to involve it in the project. So we're working with de novo. Right now, we've got it broken out as a separate cost. When this does go to bid eventually, it can be an alternate, or if it fits within the budget, obviously we can just include it with the budget. But some of the updates here, we got two different science room plans, and we've been having some back and forth with Vic and Cindy on how that's going to lay out. We have a teacher meeting targeted for March 18th to go through this and get some feedback on some of the higher level discussions we've been having. As far as the gym and locker rooms, de novo's been working to price some of this stuff out. So we've been working internally, looking at what that is going to be and trying to find cost-effective solutions to still meet the program project. So those are something we're probably going to work through in that budget meeting that we'll talk through. Other than that, no major updates there. This is the track. I have this up here. We haven't done a whole lot of design work for this, but the reason that it's important is when we're trying to look at the overall budget and find cost savings and efficiencies, we know that there's going to be a track going here. And we've always talked about that being a phase 1 project, but it can slide to phase 2 depending on how some of the bids come back. We've had the soils tested up here and we don't have a final report back, but what we're hoping is that that soil will be adequate to use at the PK2 for fill material. And that'll be a major cost savings. And if we can do that and it makes sense and we get approval, that project can go at the same time as the PK2 and have some major overall cost savings. And if it doesn't work out, then obviously it can still be a flexible project. We can slide to phase 2 if you request it.
After our meeting this morning, I looked back, it is scheduled for phase 1.
Yes, it is.
So there was discussion in the meeting this morning and
It was phase 1, 5%.
Yeah. So that's not change.
I don't have any graphics to show for the district office. We're gonna meet with Dr. T on Wednesday. We gave her a sneak peek this morning, and we're gonna work through that. One of the key decisions we have to make there is where it's gonna go. And we've talked about a couple of different locations, and so hoping that next board meeting, we'll be able to come as a facilities committee and make a recommendation to this group. Okay. I believe that's my last slide, isn't it, Jason?
That's it.
Gail.
Yeah.
Oh, Gail, sorry. Sorry. Any questions on
Takes the
anything?
team.
Any additional hiccups you come across, Joe? We've had a couple of weeks to talk to you. Anything else that's just come up and think, oh crap, or oh, just trying to work through it?
It's just, lots and lots of meetings and keeping the ball in front of you.
Yeah,
That's,
One thing we're trying to continue to work on is, just give you all an update is, we're having the facility meeting. We've increased that to 2 times a month. We have more people on that than we had before. We are also, Patrick is sending out every Friday an update of where we are, what we're doing, where we're headed, what's coming up. And we've included not only all of you, but also the city council on that, so that we're communicating with the city as much as possible and able to field any questions they may have in the process. So, and in addition to that, I met with Troy today. We're in the middle of also updating, and Vic is leading this up as well, our website. What our website has now for facility update is kind of the things we were doing prior to the bond passing. Now that the bond's passed, one way we're doing that is by the boards that are in the elementary right now. We put those up in the library, so as families are coming this week for conferences, they get a look at it like we saw here. And then we'll be updating the website, so that if people have questions, there'll be information there. We're talking about doing a frequently asked question about when will we start to see things happening, when are we going to move in? I mean, all those kind, maybe not about every project, but at least where we are with the information that was shared today. So in addition to that, we were discussing some sort of a paragraph, a newsletter. We're still trying to decide, maybe in the city water bill, or the city bill, or the city information that goes out. So even if you don't have a student at one of our sites, you still are getting the information, maybe with the link that could then send them to the website if they wanted more information. So we're working on all those other pieces to continue to increase the communication, so everyone can feel like they have the information that they need and they can feel good about the bill. So.
I know there's been discussion around softball fields, baseball fields, and where are we? I know that we're pretty early in that.
Yeah.
But where are we at with that?
I have met with the leadership for Gilbert Youth Sports. I met with Graham and Stacy, who are the current leadership, and I met with Tim Day, who provided me a lot of historical information about how Gilbert Youth Sports has developed, and I got his, kind of thoughts on some things. I'm meeting with the Soccer Association tomorrow night. They have a board meeting, so I will go through the 6 or 7 different locations we have, with alternative locations. The nice part is that there's no disruption this spring or summer to Gilbert Youth Sports or soccer.
Yeah.
So the nice part is things will roll in as planned for this summer. And then there will be a 2-year disruption for soccer, but with 6 really good locations identified, 6 to 7 good locations identified. I really feel like we don't have a scheduling issue. To make sure everyone understands, we have always scheduled independently with the Gilbert Youth Sports and the Soccer Association. That has always been something the school has done as long as I have been here, as long as I've been able to talk to anyone. We have facilities agreements with Gilbert Youth Sports. We have facilities agreements with Gilbert Soccer Association. They have their certifications and all their liability insurance covered. And we have always worked with their leadership to do this. I don't see it being any different. We have not ever worked with the city to develop scheduling. It's always been with the associations and the school district, because the city really isn't in that group. And so I feel very confident after meeting with the Soccer Association. They will be happy. They currently use our turf field. We're ready for some games and things. And they contribute toward facilities updates with the fee. And they've been great partners to us in the past, as Gilbert Youth Sports. So I don't really see a lot of hiccups besides growing pains for a couple of years, and we'll just have to be adjusted. So I should have something to submit to the facilities report for the end of the week.
Great, thanks.
And we also discussed getting that information out in some sort of writing form or up on the website, so that if people have questions about, if they're hearing a rumor about this or that, they have a place to go where the facts are. So we'll continue to work on that as well with the youth sports.
To try to give an indication of when he thinks the website will have some of this information, is this in the coming weeks or?
Yes, I would say in the coming weeks.
Okay.
He's got a few videos on his plate right now, one of them being the annual event, which is coming up. So as soon as we can, we're working on that. in the next couple of weeks.
I would say we probably be working on this week and the week following.
Okay, great.
Last thing, I had traffic study. I know that's been a topic too, and where are we at on that? The report was done and
We have it ready to share with the group. We're gonna be reviewing with the facilities committee here. We just kind of been prioritizing the BK2 before we get onto that.
nope, perfect.
We can also bring that back if, depending on the recommendation from the facilities group, but we can bring that back. I think it would be interesting for all of us to hear, so we can bring that back to the April meeting. Also.
Anything else for facilities? For the update. All right.
Good job. Thank
Yeah,
you
good
guys.
job. Thank you for all the meetings and the time that all of you put in.
So we need to approve the proposed plans and specifications before we award the contract, right?
And this was based on the hearing that we held last month. And then tonight we're taking action on them.
All right.
I move to approve the proposed plans as stated by Joe.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the plans are approved. Next, consider or approve awarding the contract to the responsible low bidder for the middle school entry project, which is the Keystone Construction. And our recommendation was to not have the alternate, so to include that in. We have a motion to approve the low bidder without the alternate.
I move to approve.
We have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. See some construction.
To work.
Right.
Let the building be in.
All right. New business. Review 2024-25 proposed certified budget. With action to set the maximum property tax. Public hearing number 1 and final budget public hearing number 2.
So in your packet, I included some information because this is all new to me. After doing this for 30 years, is like, I'm really cautious about because it's a new process. So getting educated on it. And with that, I included some taxpayer information because when we have these hearings coming up, it's an opportunity. We are allowing the public to come and talk about it. And since this is new, we need to listen to them. And that's what we need to do. And so they may ask questions. So what is it, what they see in the paper, let me pull up. So this is what they will get in the paper, but with that 8.5 by 11, they'll have the city, they'll have the school, they'll have anybody who has property taxes all in one. For Story, if you live in Story County, you will see everybody's tax statement. So there'll be lots of information. So just trying to prepare us for what to expect possibly and how to defend what we're doing and why we're asking for property tax dollars. And so the first hearing is proposed for Monday, March 25th at 6 p.m. And that is the maximum property tax hearing. And I know earlier I had said, okay, as I waited till Thursday, a week or two ago, House passed 3% SSA, thinking it's headed to Senate. They're ready for a bill. All they needed to do was slide in the amount into the draft bill. Well, here we are going on week number 2. Nothing. So meantime, I've been attending some weekly webinars with ISFAS and trying to, just get updated on the legislation and things. And then we find out, my theory with doing property taxes, that you would need to lower the SSA, lower it to increase your dollar amount, completely opposite of what I expected. So I provided scenarios here to show exactly, like, I was flabbergasted. So I reached out to Larry Siegel and I'm like, he's like, everybody's realized it is absolutely the opposite of what you would think, what would happen to your property tax dollars. And so with that being said, even though SSA is zero, because nothing has been passed. The most that we would, get for property tax dollars, as you can see here, 0% would be 12.3. 3% would be 12.388. And 6% would be 12.4. Now, I don't think we're gonna get 6%. So my theory is I'm gonna go with 6%, knowing it's pie in the sky, that we're not gonna get it, but we are covered. Hopefully it's 3 when it's all said and done. So, I wanted to let you guys know that what will be published in the paper will be based on 6% SSA to protect us for the maximum. Now, there's not a large difference, but, I want to make sure that we are protected. So the highest, we don't think, I just don't think it's going to be much over 3. Hopefully we get 3. So this is what to expect, when it is published in the paper, and we have the hearing on the 25th. And that's 6 o'clock. That will be the only thing on the agenda unless we have an SSA, we can move with negotiations or something else that comes up, then we can have a meeting after the hearing. And but that is the only agenda item. So we would just need a quorum so we can meet, have the hearing, allow the public to speak if there's anybody present, and then that's it. So it could take a matter of 5 minutes, maybe. Unless we have other business that needs to be on the agenda. Our next meeting is April 8th. So at the April 8th meeting is the actual budget hearing. And so here I provided a scenario of, this is kind of where we're at for, first was 2.5, which is the governor's recommendation. Then the House came out with 3%. Not sure what the Senate's gonna do. So I decided, well, let's just see. I wanted to show you what the difference between 2.5 and 3 is. And really, it's just very, very minimal. So this is kind of what we can expect. And our timeline here is to approve the budget at April 8th meeting and publish it. I will publish if no SSA is in place yet, I will go with the higher rate of the 3 and anticipation that it'll be 3.
Or legal requirements, the reason for these hearings is we're gonna say, we're going to tax you up to this amount. That's not the rate, but it's up to, we're setting the bookends.
Right,
And it's
so
just a notification law.
we cannot increase the levy. So April 8th is a levy rate. And so we cannot increase the levy rate if it changes, but we can always reduce it down. So that's protect us. So April 8th will be the levy rate that we actually are approving. And that's different than March 25th is the dollar amount. So this, I wanted to give you a kind of a preview of what it's going to look going forward and when it comes to the board. And of course, this is simplifying. This is just a summary. The official budget document is many pages and lots of information. But this is what the board, you as a board, has control of. And but it's at Gilbert, with using the comprehensive financial projection model, we know 5 years out in advance what we want our levy to be. Now it's everything in between when we actually dial down to it. At that point, all the things that go into consideration, the taxable valuation, laws, etc. But we already have an idea 5 years out what our preferred levy rate would be, what we want. So we have a lot of work done ahead of time, just finalizing and doing the legal requirements along the way. So on the agenda, just recommend setting the maximum property tax budget hearing for March 25th at 6 p.m. And then that will, and then the final budget hearing for April 8th, that you're actually giving me authority to publish it in the paper and then schedule the hearing.
All right. So I'm just gonna read it. Recommend setting the maximum property tax budget hearing 1 for the fiscal year 25 proposed certified budget for Monday, March 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m. and the final budget hearing for Monday, April 8th, at 6 p.m. in an intermediate LMC. Do I have a motion?
I'll approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
I,
All opposed? All right. Moving on. Open enrollment. Dr. T.
Yes, I don't have anything there, Gail, do we have, is that, am I not seeing it? I don't have
Oh.
attachment.
Okay, so.
Is it in the drop, that's what I was just trying to do is pull it up on Dropbox or I'm not.
Actually, let me pull it up here. I
Okay.
did put it in, I didn't allow view publicly because it has student
I
name.
wondered about that,
Yeah.
yes, I wondered.
Yeah, so I was just protecting, but
Yeah.
I'm logged in, so.
Yeah, that's good. So what what's coming up, just so you know, this is our yearly open enrollment. Now, in the past, there was a time frame around this that we would approve open enrollments for the upcoming school year. I think the date was March 15th. Then a year or so ago, the legislators made a decision that we didn't need to have a date ever, which creates its own set of issues and concerns. So we just made the decision, and because parents about this time start calling and asking about did we get in, because they need to make other arrangements if they cannot get into the Gilbert School District, and we respect that. So we use our grid, if you are open enrollment chart that is bright yellow that you've seen multiple times, and we take a look at those open enrollments that have come in, and the number one question in determining whether we have space is, do we have the capacity at that particular grade level? And so, for example, you'll see there were a lot of kindergartners on that list because yes, we do have capacity for kindergartners, so we brought them in. In some cases, we have no capacity. We're way over by 10, 11 students. And so that would tell you we do not have capacity. Now, in one case, for example, sometimes we might have a family that's putting in for, let's say, 3rd grade and 5th grade. We might have room in a 3rd grade because there's a chair available, and in 5th grade, we do not. And that's really hard to split up families, but the history of that that we've stuck really tightly to is that open enrollment and making sure that we have room for the kids that come to us from our own neighborhoods, and then leaving a little bit of room for open enrollment. But you still have to make sure we have room for kids that are coming. So we went through and did all that. Also, if a student has any sort of additional needs, let's say if they need speech services, then that's the same question. Like we might have room in that grade level, but do we have room with that program that they need? Or maybe it's they have extra needs in the area of gifted. Do we have room in our gifted program? So it's not just about the seat, it's about all the pieces that come together to make that decision and the recommendations. So you'll see on this list, a longer list than typically we see every month, because this is our group that's coming in. And then pending your approval, we'll send letters to all those families that say, yes, you're in, or no, we're sorry, we're at capacity, and they will not be in. You'll see, it's hard to see on that chart, but middle school and high school are pretty much completely closed to open enrollment. We were able to bring in a few in some of the younger grades, and then that pretty much shut down that particular grade. Like the one I'm thinking of, I think is 5th grade. There was room for 1 student. We were able to say yes to the 1 student, and then from there it's closed. So
just doing the quick math, it looked like there's 15 new approved and 12 siblings.
Right.
And then the other ones were actual current students, just allowing they moved. So 15 approved and 12 siblings.
of those 15 approved, what grades are those? Mostly kindergarten, you said?
There's a 5th grade,
I feel like it was 5th grade, 3rd grade.
pre-K, kindergarten, 6th grader. There's a couple 6th graders, kindergarten prep, kindergarten.
What's the main difference between the monthly open enrollment that we do and this one?
It's the only difference is that perhaps something has changed in that maybe somebody moved away and it created an opening. So then somebody else moves in and says, hey, is there room in 4th grade now? And so sometimes there might be, and sometimes there is not. Or if it's a family that, sometimes it's a family that has moved. was in our district and maybe they moved and they applied for open enrollment, so there's that.
That's why we would take action monthly.
Yes,
And then the reason we have so many now is just because of
For next school year.
correct.
Yeah, started school.
And
That,
Go ahead.
that monthly document that we see that's just showing the ins and outs that are happening organically.
yes,
People
correct,
basically moving.
Because we approve or
Yes.
deny open enrollment every month.
correct. But this is our big chunk. Oh,
Because-
yeah, that's the chart I was, yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. And I don't know, Gil, can we zoom in a little bit on the left side? So this chart was created prior to my time here. And it has really held the test of time. I've actually had other districts ask us to use this as a sample, and our legal counsel refers everybody to us, or their other people to us over this chart. So if we go to second grade, you can see in second grade, it talks about how many sections we have. So we have 5 sections in second grade. It talks about our ideal class size is 22, which then leads us to, okay, what does that allow us to have of how many kids are here? So what we do for this coming school year, 23, 24, is this is rolled forward. So we took all the kids that are currently in first grade and we rolled them forward to second grade. And then we said, okay, how many sections are there? How many kids in a class could it be? And then that gives you how many seats are available. So if you go across there, you can see particularly second grade, we're already over by 5 in that particular grade level. So anywhere you see a negative number, that means we are over. And we're watching it very closely because we want to stick to our ideal classroom section number as close as possible, that 20, 22, 24, 25 moving forward. And so, for example, if you go to 5th grade, now you can see if you go all the way over where it says OE available, it says we have 10 seats available. Well, how can we have 10 seats available, you might ask? Well, if you scan back to the left, we had an added section there, and we have 6 sections instead of 5, which means you have a little bit more leeway there. So, for example, Amy and I, the principal at the intermediate, had a long discussion about 5 or 6 sections at 4th grade and 5 or 6 sections at 5th grade. Based on her history of kids that come to her, maybe move into the neighborhood, she felt comfortable leaving 6 sections in 5th grade. So we'll do that at this point, but we'll be watching that to say, you know, what's changing? Do we have an influx of 4th graders show up? And then do we want to make some modifications there? We're not ready to do something like that because we're able to maintain it the way it is now. And so that just gives you a little bit of a picture of that. If you scroll.
And Christine, didn't we, back to the kindergarten too, didn't we last year, 2 years ago, approve a possible 6th section in kindergarten if we had enough kids
Yes,
enrolled before open enrollment?
yes,
Okay,
we absolutely did. And so Stacy and I sat down and looked at who's already applied this year and who she has coming through. And kinder's the hardest one to predict because you don't know who's coming through the door, right? So the other grades, we know who's rolling forward. And Stacy mentioned to me recently, in principal at the elementary, she's had 3 people call recently and just say, oh, I didn't know we had registration. Oh, should we come and fill out the paperwork? It's like, yes, come now. This is the time, you know, so we'll get that throughout the summer and then that will impact that.
Do you think we'll be adding a section for the next school year?
I think we're holding tight right now. I think we're okay. But when you lay this over, which maybe I was thinking about, maybe in April, we'll look at that. You go back to our enrollment study and where we're seeing what they said about we could see some growth. That could impact this because they are saying we would see some growth. We just don't know yet because it's like, you know, now sometimes we have people that are building a house in the Gilbert area, but maybe they currently live in Roland Story. And so those are some people that sometimes fill out the open enrollment. So we know they're gonna live here anyway soon, and then they get to come. But it is difficult, I will tell you, to tell a family like, okay, this grade is in and that grade is not. That's probably the hardest.
And then they have the choice on whether they want to proceed with that, right? Like, let's say your 5th grader's in, but your 3rd grader's not, then they can choose, okay, yeah, we want our 5th grader to come, or we don't want to split our family up, so we're gonna pull back and
Correct.
stay where we're at.
I've always appreciated this. Again, a lot of districts just kind of just take anything they can get, which adds problems down the road. This is a tool, remember, this is a tool that we use to maintain ideal class sizes. So I appreciate that we do this and that you go through all the work to run these
This is
numbers.
also kind of an offshoot of our future planning facilities, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at that as we're going, so we're not getting to a point now where like, oh man, we're way overloaded, you know, because there are some districts that aren't very forward thinking and the tide's already over the edge and they can't build fast enough. So it's nice that we're paying close attention to those projections.
The only other thing I'll mention is that if you were to pull up the chart, which I'm not suggesting we do from this current year, and you say, well, it says there that, let me go to second grade or first grade has -5. And then this year would just roll -5, so why doesn't it say negative, you know, kind of questioning that open enrollment available? Well, I'll tell you what switches is you have to go back to the ideal students per section. Because it's 20, but then when you roll up to the next grade, it's 22. And then that also triggers what happens over an open enrollment. So that's how sometimes some spots can open in this setting that maybe we didn't have before. So there's a lot of factors to it and you know,
Number of sections you have in addition to how many students per section
correct,
changes as you go through the grade levels.
correct. And so, yeah, so that's where we are and that's the information and you have a list of people that are anxiously awaiting this information that we'll send out letters to tomorrow. And I wish we could take everyone, but we have to work within our budgets and the cares and what's best for our kids in our district. So,
And just a reminder too, the new PK2 building will have 7 sections, right?
correct,
So that's what we're building for, 7 sections for K.
Have the ability to go up to 7.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. So
I have some
when-
room to breathe.
yes, as we have more kids coming in, we'll be able to slowly add, you know, what that looks like. And then that'll be a discussion we'll continue to have over the years is if you roll up a section, you know, up to 6, then you gotta have 6 for the next grade level and so on and so forth, which has a budget implication.
So to calculate these estimates, that's processed with you, the principals and Vic, or how does that work? How did you arrive at these numbers?
Actually, it's working with our registrar, Ashley Smith. So anyone that fills out an application for open enrollment, she collects all those. This is a formula that has been put together, so she, you know, I went to her and said, okay, here's how we're gonna roll this forward. So we do that, then I send it out to the principals to, almost as a double check, which was really great, because it reminds you of, oh yeah, this is the process of how we do this, and how come these numbers didn't match up, and we were able to have those go, oh, remember, this and this and this, these triggers. So then the principals double check on that, and then, I make the final decision around just using the numbers in the chart, as well as the needs that are listed on open enrollment, to make sure we can accommodate our kids and the needs that they have with capacity.
Yeah, the input from the principals usually is very historical. They kind of know what it's going to be. For example, Mike can roughly tell you about how many kids are coming in St. Cecilia's. You know, that's the fact that we don't always know. When I was high school principal, or, you know, as Cindy is now, you can kind of look what's going on in the middle school and predict in a couple of years how big that class is going to be to project how many sections of English you're going to need. Are you going to need 7 sections or 6 sections? Which helps you kind of to start thinking about your staffing needs and how you are moving things around to accommodate.
And that's what I was gonna say, coming in right behind this, not on your agenda tonight, but it will be part of our April meeting. In some form it does impact staffing. So all of this, as we're talking about, we haven't made any decisions per se about things that we need to add because we're waiting on the SSA. But as soon as we have that, then I have what the principals are recommending, and then I have, based on what we're doing district-wide, recommendations that I'll be sharing with all of you in my April meeting. But it's tied to this because of more kids. And we need more support, teachers, more.
I appreciate, as Josh said, that you're so proactive and that clearly having all the different principals weigh in, there's a lot of eyes on this, and so that'll just inform me on how it got to us in the first place.
It's probably the number one question I get out in the community from people that aren't in the Gilbert School District,
How do
is
we
how
get
can I get in?
Yeah.
And
Box checks, find a builder.
And this matrix has been tested.
Yeah.
And it's
It
been.
fairly applies to everyone, regardless of who you are.
And it's not easy when I get calls also about how do I get our child in? That's hard, but this has stood the test of time and that makes it easier because then I can stick to that chart and, you know. Like I said, not having families all come is hard, but we have to make sure we have room for our kids that are right here in our own neighborhood and we wanna welcome those in that we can, but. It's a good process and thank you to those that did it before I got here, so.
When they removed the deadline for open enrollment, a lot of districts could not deny applications at that point because you had to prove or have provide a reason, and we were ahead of the game. We already had it, so.
So just so you're aware of that whole process is that, what I had actually telling people when they called is that the board, based on our recommendations and capacity, the board would make a decision on the first meeting in March. And so I think we'll just use that moving forward so that people know that first meeting in March will be when this comes, that's our practice. And that way, families can make their own decisions based on that.
Is there any way just to give them a little bit more information with regards to some of the class sizes, like, hey, as it sits last month, we had only a couple classes where we were actually taking open enrollment. And the reason I ask is because I do get a lot of phone calls of like, hey, I know it's coming on the board agenda. Well, we all know, I mean, everybody knows, but because I know we're telling them, hey, it's up to board approval, so they literally think we're voting each kid, yes, no, just based off if we like them or not. And it's really just based off, I mean, it's based off the matrix,
Is
so.
there any reason this can't be a living document on the website?
Yeah, or even just like someone they call in to say, hey, I mean, I would just say again, it's up to board approval, but as of where we sit today, we have room in the 5th and 6th grade, it looks like only. I mean, can get something little like that even be said.
Yeah, I think we could do a chart, from this chart. I don't think everybody needs all the nuances, not that there's anything,
Yeah.
but a chart that just says open and closed. So you could go to our website and say, here's the grade levels.
Yeah.
We can update it monthly, open, close, so they know going in.
You got it. It's just hard because you get calls, but you typically know, they have your cell phone number. And they're like, hey, be sure to vote Billy in. I'm like.
Yeah.
And so it just makes, I said, it'd just be nice. I know that when they told us it's up to you, and like, well, it is, but it isn't kind of a deal.
Yeah, that's.
And as you see, as we get further down, the older grades, the more kids that go out before we can let anyone in.
Yeah.
Appeals slid it up a little bit. You can see
Yeah, the high school is completely.
Yeah, the high school's full.
I like the OE available number. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good number that the public can view.
Well, I like the open and close, really. Just open and
We
close.
just need to know which.
Yeah, we'll draw that out, and
Yeah.
after each meeting each month, we can just update that on the website, so if you click on open enrollment, and that's easy to do, and then it's good for everybody to know that's what we're looking at, so.
That's something that Ashley can direct them to as
Yep.
well when they call.
And the other thing that comes up sometimes is, well, can we be put on the waiting list? We don't really keep a waiting list, just so everyone is aware of that information, because it can create a sense of false hope, and so because if you're a freshman and you're number 14, that's a long list, and we don't have a lot of in and out. That's one of the nice things about Gilbert in one way, so we just don't keep it
It could be multiple years before you got to the spot, you're ready to get the next spot.
yeah.
On the list.
So we don't keep a waiting list, just so everyone knows that.
We do not need to take action on any of this, just to review.
It's later on in the open
Consent.
enrollment.
Yeah, consent.
Consent.
Thank you, Gail.
And financial reports, which we're not getting at this meeting.
I actually just I received bank statements today and it's a little too aggressive timeline for me.
That's all right.
April.
Sure, we're doing fine. All right, consent agenda, anything need to be pulled or discussed?
Real quick, just because I see AEA on there, I know it's kind of an ongoing topic. Christine, I know you attended the meeting with the governor and several other superintendents. I know this has nothing to do with consent agenda, but you just want to do a brief update on how that meeting went.
Sure.
So,
I'd be happy to, so I received, a text from Michael Klein, who's the superintendent of North Polk, on Thursday afternoon, asking if I'd like to attend a roundtable with the governor with 2 other superintendents. So it was myself, it was the superintendent from DCG, and of course, Michael from North Polk. The principal from North Polk, his name is.
Seth Goldberg.
Yes, and
High
he
school
was,
principal.
he was their high school principal, and they also had their senior class president who joined us as well, so that was nice to have her there. It was the governor, it was Mackenzie Snow, who's the director of the Department of Education, and a few legislators that joined as well. Because this is around the AEA, the governor shared her information about wanting to increase teacher salaries. She also shared information about her plan for AEA. She shared that she felt her first plan was extremely aggressive. She said that she heard people and they have modified it somewhat. And so we listened to her why, if you will, why she's feeling the way she's feeling about the AEA. And then she also talked about the importance of science of reading. So it was nice to hear those pieces. I was able to share on behalf of Gilbert how we're a little bit ahead of the game, that we're already in the process of working with the instructional practices of science of reading, that I appreciated the training that the state has been providing. We have lots of staff that have signed up. It's called letters training, and that we were already on board with that. And as far as teacher pay, there was some information she shared that she would be providing some additional funding for teacher pay to not only first year teachers, but also that, I think it was year 13, and some monies in between that. So that was something I hadn't heard before. She gave some specifics. I talked to Gail about that, and that's in her bill that has not been passed yet. So it's been passed by one, but not the other. And then finally, back to your comment about AEA, she has an extreme passion for changing the way AEA does business. What I shared with her is really just from the Gilbert perspective, that the work that we get and do with Heartland AEA is outstanding, that I can't imagine doing the work that we do for our children without having AEA. I shared with her that I can appreciate the need for accountability. I believe in accountability. And if that's what she's looking for, that I understand that, but being able to provide services for our children without the AEA, don't know how that looks. And said we'd have to agree to disagree on that particular point. I did share with her also that I felt that from the governor's office, I would like to see more support for mental wellness for our students. And she was very open to that and actually had me step aside at the end of the roundtable to talk to me more about that. Gave me some information to reach out to someone in her office to get more information about that. So I was very encouraged about that. So it was an hour and a half. I felt like she did come to the table to listen. She is very passionate about changing AEA, and one piece that she talked a great deal about was about a lot of administrators overseeing some things at AEA that she'd like to see change. And so that's where that accountability would come in.
Yeah.
The one piece that was new is that for me to hear is originally the original bill from AEA took $100,000 from Gilbert in the media services and $100,000 in PD services, and it would stay at the state level and we would have to backfill that ourselves. That has since changed in the new amendment that has come forward, and those $200,000 would come to the districts, is what she told us, and then we would find our own ways to print things and pay for PD. So that was good news. We all shared with her that we liked hearing that. So it was a good opportunity to be at a round table and share our thoughts, Gilbert. in my opinion. So how that impacts this cooperative agreement moving forward, I'm not sure, I know. But I was really glad that I was able to go and participate on such short notice and to be invited to the table.
Yeah, that's cool. Good job. Also, I know you mentioned at one point teachers shortages too. Did that come up in conversation just
Yes.
overall the state being a
Yes.
teacher shortage?
I actually shared the facts because I think that that's pretty telling. I shared with her that the way I framed it was around, I know she works hard at keeping young families in the state of Iowa. She has a passion for that. So then I shared that with her, that I think that that's a wonderful idea to keep young families in the state of Iowa, and said, and part of that is getting people to apply for our jobs. And I gave the example that, 5 years ago, we might have 35 to 40 applicants for a first grade teaching job, and now we might have 7. And that is the impact that we're seeing, and that's something that we really need help with, as well as how people find those jobs. And I mentioned Iowa, so that we're struggling with that. So I did share that as well.
Just to let you know, I attended a recruitment fair today at Iowa State. There were 75 districts there trying to get teachers. So it was like a feeding frenzy of teachers walking around and everybody wanting it. It's a great time we were in certain areas of teaching but there were districts that, are in really bad shape. They haven't, like I listened to a lady talk today that they've had openings that they haven't filled for multiple years because they have no applicants. One district is cutting 10 teachers because they're 40 kids down in enrollment. And so she was having to cut 10 teachers this spring and was talking about how ugly of a process that was going to be. But I felt very encouraged that there were so many young people that are excited about education today. And so looking for jobs and wanting to get into the profession. So hopefully that will translate into them staying in Iowa.
Yeah, well, I think the problem, and not to go down a rabbit hole here, is I think the young people still want to get in it, then they're leaving early. I mean, they're just coming in for a couple of years and there's not a way to keep them in there. Just because the pay doesn't go up the same with inflation and costs of daycare and costs of everything else. So, I mean, I think you're still seeing the kids, the hearts are still there to get into it, but then they're getting burnt out so easily and so quickly. And then you're just filling that. At some point you can't keep filling the water, it keeps leaking out. So. Sorry, thanks, guys. I know you attended, and I thought it was
The only other
good
piece
job.
about that is, I did share, actually, Michael Klein shared, from Norfolk that I thought was great, is that the science of reading is a wonderful way to help kids learn to read. But it's also important that we don't lose sight of the love of reading. And I had shared that one of the nice things about having experience in another state is I saw that happen there when we brought in the science of reading. It was called something different, but the same concept. And we need to keep promoting the love of reading, read alouds in the classroom. We'll make sure we're still getting kids excited about reading before we break down all the pieces to teach them to read. That's important too. And so we shared that. And then also I was able to share my perspective of coming from a state that did not have AEA and the detriment that was to kids who needed additional services. Is important to know, and was able to share that with governor as well. So.
Job.
All right. Consent agenda. We have a motion to approve everything on the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Calendar. March 25th, we get that public hearing on the proposed property tax rate. April 8th will be the second hearing on that, followed by the regular board meeting, and then the closed session for Dr. T's review for the evaluation. And May 13th, the next regular board meeting. All right, we have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And we are